What is up, YouTube? We are back with another video. This week's video is actually the start of a new series that I'm going to be starting. It's going to be called The Weekend Warrior. It's just small projects that I have to do this spring while we're kind of in a down period of work, to where I know that once it starts to really warm up and planting season arrives, that I'm going to be super busy and I'm not going to have time to do these small projects that I need to accomplish before planting season hits. So today I'm going to be creating my cages. Now, I've been throwing around some different ideas on how to protect shrubs, especially if you're doing smaller pockets. So what I've come up with an idea is I'm going to use 6-foot wide fabric, cut it into 6-foot by 6-foot squares, plant 4 shrubs spacing out 4 feet from each other to create more of a square, and I'm going to be using the same cuttings in those pockets. So I'm actually going to be doing that out in 2 of our swampy areas in our property, where I'm going to be burning once the snow melts around here and the grasses dry out a little bit. I'm going to be burning those little small pockets, and then once spring hits, I'm going to be laying down the fabric, putting our cage around it, planting our 4 cuttings, and then moving on to the next little pocket. But I want to just throw around those ideas on different ways of protecting small areas and how to establish cuttings by protecting them and using ground fabric, because those 2 things are very crucial, especially when using red osier dogwood, the silky dogwood, and also the dappled willow. So I'm going to be using 2-foot cuttings for those projects because I'm in a little bit swampier area. Now, there isn't standing water, so I'll be able to burn it, and then once that spring moisture is gone and out of the ground, then I'll go in when it's a little bit drier and I'll lay down my fabric and then plant my cuttings and put the cages around it. Now, these cages, they're going to be about 16 foot 8 inches because I want it to be around 5 foot in diameter to give myself enough room to be able to surround all 4 of those cuttings with one central cage. And then we're going to be using a 6-foot by 6-inch T-post. So I'm going to pound that in the ground, put my cage around it, staple the bottom of that cage down, and then zip tie that cage to that T-post. So I only need 1 T-post. And from our local farm and fleet, it looked like a 6-foot by 6-inch T-post is about $6. And then the cage, since I'm going to be using a 100-foot roll of welded wire, also from farm and fleet, and that stands at 5 feet tall. So there'll be plenty of height for me to be able to put that around the cuttings, and then they'll be able to establish for about 2 to 3 growing seasons, especially the red osier dogwood, because it is a little bit slower growing than compared to our silky willow and dappled willow. So I definitely want to leave it on for 2 to 3 growing seasons, and that 5 feet of height will be plenty of space and room for that cutting to establish, especially with the 4 in the group little pods. And then I'll be able to remove the cages and use them elsewhere on the property to continue to expand my doe bedding areas. So I'm going to be cutting that today. I'm going to have a time lapse set up of me cutting it. So I'm going to roll it out the 16-foot 8-inch mark. I'm going to get 6 cages per 100-foot roll. That's kind of why I picked that 6 cage number, so that on a 100-foot roll I can have an equal amount of cages. So I wrote down a little bit of numbers wise. So the farm and fleet welded wire 5-foot by 100-foot roll for a 5.3 foot diameter cage came out to be $140 for the whole roll. So I'll be able to get 6 cages out of that. And then having 1 T-post, 6-foot 6-inch T-post with that per roll. Each cage is going to be about $30. So I'm going to be able to create this cage for $30 and spend probably about under an hour just getting prepared now today to cut all my cages up, lay them on a pallet, move them out with the skid steer. And then once spring hits, all I have to do is pull the skid steer with the pallet out to the area where I'm going to be planting my shrubs. I'll have the area burned ready, which I'll have another video on that. I'll also have another video on the fabric cutting, just to give you guys some ideas on what you guys can be doing now. Let's just say you're in a slower period, just like I am, where as soon as spring hits, you start getting busier and busier, and all of a sudden now your cuttings are arriving and you're just not prepared. So if you guys ever have a weekend where you have nothing that's going on, then I would just suggest doing some of these projects just to kind of stay ahead, because if you're anything like me, if I fall behind and spring hits and I go to plant, well, now protecting my shrubs is the last little thing on the totem pole that I don't really want to get to. So if I can accomplish and prepare some of my cages for my shrubs or even some of the fabrics, then I can just do that now. And then once spring hits, then I can just jump and get right into my projects and get them done within the same weekend. So I'm gonna be cutting the rolls here of the welded wire, laying them on the pallet that'll be outside, and I'll just have a time lapse rolling. And then at the end of the video, then I'll just explain kind of how I'm doing things. And then I'll wrap up the video and then talk about what I'm gonna be doing in the next video to prepare for my shrub plantings this spring. Alrighty, so I just wrapped up getting all 6 cages laid out. Now, one thing that you guys could do is actually just leave the cages wound up because they'll naturally just want to form back into a circle, kind of like this guy. But I wanted just to lay them flat, put them on a pallet, haul them around with the skid steer. But if you guys have space either outside or even inside of a shop and you guys just want to lay and keep them rolled up, that would also work. And I think that would actually be easier than trying to lay them flat, as like I said, they naturally want to curl back up. So next time I'm definitely just going to lay them in circles so that they're much easier to move, and then I'll just individually have to bring them down to my swamp when I go to plant them this spring. So that took me probably 10 total minutes to roll all that out, cut it up, and lay it on a pallet. So now that's just one less thing I have to do this spring. But if you guys don't have any time now, of course, you'll have to do it in the springtime. But that's just one thing to get out of the way now. So I'm calling it the Weekend Warrior because today is a Friday after work. I just wanted to get that quickly done so that in the spring, I don't have to worry about cutting that up. All I got to do is go out to the field, start planting and laying the cages out. So in the next video, when I do the fabric with the 6 foot wide fabric, and then it's making the 6 foot by 6 foot pieces, I'm also going to draw out a diagram on a whiteboard on exactly how I'm going to plant these individual pockets where I'm going to have the 4 cuttings and then the cages, just to guys give you a visual on exactly how I'm going to plant these shrub pockets, because they're going to be a little bit different than the 30-foot diameter circles that we've been doing. Because the areas in the swamp that I want to plant these shrubs, there's just not enough room to put a 30-foot circle. So I need to go smaller, and I still need to be able to cage them and use fabric. So this is going to be a great way, especially if you guys have areas where maybe you don't have enough area to where you're going to be able to do large 30-foot diameter circles. This is going to be another easy way to be able to fence in and to establish red osier dogwood, silky dogwood, dappled willow, or even the trees like the hybrid willow and the hybrid poplar. And so I appreciate you guys watching this week's video. Next week's video is going to be about the fabric and explaining how I'm going to be planting those shrubs. And so stay tuned, like and subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next video.